Hey, good to be with you guys. It's actually a real pleasure to be here chatting with you and sharing with you some things that I'm very, very passionate about. I've actually been greatly encouraged. I mean, Peter and I didn't collaborate. We try not to. But it's quite, and even Dick, your presentation there, this whole theme of well-being that just keeps coming to the fore. That really excites me because that's an area that I'm really, really passionate about. To start off with, I said to my wife, my wife's a teacher, she works at Avondale School, loves the staff, she has a wonderful principal, just loves the, is that enough now, Deb? That's enough, all right. Anyway, so I said to her, hey, listen, I want to engage these education leaders. How would I go about doing that? She said, well, you'd have to start with some learning outcomes. And I thought, okay, all right, so I thought I'm going to specify the learning outcomes for this session. Here we go, number one is by the end of this session, we will have had fun. Okay. Now, I am a big believer, as I said, I've been at Avondale 24 years now. This will be my 24th year. And one thing I've learned over that time is that unless it's fun, people don't learn. Right? Unless it's fun and engaging, it doesn't stick. So I hope that today some of the stuff that we're going to do is a bit of fun. And when I say fun, I know that there are two different types of fun. I mean, Peter spoke about paragliding today. I actually did I just want to make this distinctive difference, right? Because there is a difference between these sports. I'm into the aviation, so that's paragliding. This is hang gliding. I zoomed in on this person, and that's what the hang gliding looks like. This is the hang gliding version of it, all right? So this is, once again, Peter's sport. And hey, I've got nothing against paragliding, I should say. I mean, they're two forms of aviation. They both have their merits. And look, when I'm sort of 90, 95 and I've slowed down and can't fly like Superman anymore, lying down like this, then I'll do that thing where you sit in an armchair and pull some strings. So hey, look, I'm nothing against it at all. So hopefully we're going to have a bit of fun. That's my first learning objective. Here's the second one. By the end of this session, we will have discovered new insights and strategies for feeling more emotionally upbeat and resilient. Now this, to be honest, and look, I think I get labelled a little bit, to be honest. And I remember once I was as North New South Wales camp, I was a speaker for one of the tents there. And I was going over my notes, and it was the Friday night was going to be the first session. So I'm walking around the campground, just going over the notes for my first presentation. And as I walked past, I heard a couple of ladies out the front of their tent chatting about, I heard one say to the other, what tent are you going to go to? Because if you've ever been to the North New South Wales camp, there's like about six options. Anyway, I thought, woo, and so this is dangerous. I shouldn't have eavesdropped, but I've sort of gone, and I've listened in, and they're looking through the little brochure, and then I hear the other lady say to her, she goes, well, I know which one I'm not going to. And I've just gone, oh! I thought, this is getting really dangerous now, but, I couldn't help myself. So I've tuned in a little bit more, and she said, oh, which one's that? She goes, I'm not going to that Darren Morton character. And I'm just going, oh, like I haven't even started yet. And all of a sudden, people are boycotting me. And the woman goes, so why is that? And she goes, oh, he's that health dude, and he will make me feel guilty. All right? And I thought, oh, how did my life come to that I'm known as the guy that makes people feel guilty? I never want to be that guy. In fact, what I want to say to you is that, some of you know that I'm involved with CHIP. I was a developer of the CHIP program, and some of you may have even done that, the presenter in that. That's a fantastic program. It's in 10 countries around the world now. And it's about food. I want to tell you, and I need to say this more regularly in a public forum, I'm not a vegan. I'm not a vegan Nazi. I'm not, I love chocolate. I eat it probably most days. I eat quite well though, and in fact, one thing I want to talk about today is that probably what you do eat is more important than what you don't eat. But I actually think we need a new spin. Right? People are tired of being told what they're doing wrong, right? And what they should be doing that they aren't, and what they are doing that they shouldn't be. And so I think that the game needs to change, and I'm really excited. I'm going to be telling you about this thing that's called the Live More Project. That is something that's completely pitched in the positive. Right, so I don't want you to feel anxious at all about what I'm going to talk about today. I actually am here to give you some really incredible insights, I believe. I'm super excited about this stuff. New ways of thinking about how to achieve well-being. And what the end game for me is actually emotional well-being. That's the thing that I'm most interested in. That's the thing I've always been most interested in. Is food important? Well, yeah, it is. But it's actually just a vehicle to getting to the end goal for me, which is helping people feel better. Obviously, more important to me than food is actually activity. And now I come out of sort of the exercise physiology space, and I was a PE teacher. And I love being physically active. Why? And I've written books on it. Why do I love that? Because it's a vehicle for helping people to feel better. So, my end goal for people, this is my life work, my life mission, is to actually help people to discover strategies that can put them in a better place emotionally. I have a great interest in emotional well-being. And why that's becoming more and more pertinent is because today so many people are struggling emotionally. Right, the latest statistics in Australia is that 1 in 10 Australian adults, right, look around the room, 1 in 10 Australian adults are on antidepressants today. Right, now, I'm not against medications by any stretch. I'm not, not saying that well, it is. For me, it's a sign that something's going wrong. People are struggling emotionally. Pete shared some of the stats on stress and all the rest of it. We have a massive issue, and the big issue revolves around mental health and emotional well-being. So, my main objective today is actually to help you discover some new insights, new ways of thinking. It's fascinating stuff that's coming out, some of the fascinating science on how to feel more upbeat emotionally and be more emotionally resilient. Now, I thought I need just one more learning outcomes, because they say you probably should have 3. And I thought, just in case I fail on the first 2, I want one that I know that I can get. I know that I can nail. And so here it is. By the end of this session, we will have heard Darren's favourite children's story. And so I thought, let's just tick that one off from the outset, so that if things don't go well for the next 2, then we're still all good. So here we go. This is my favourite children's story. And what I'm going to tell you is that all good children's stories have a good moral. So I'm going to ask you what the moral of the story is at the end, so put your thinking caps on, folks. So here we go. This is Some Dogs Do by Jez Albar. My kids, I love reading kids' children's stories, and my kids, they're 14, 13, 11. They won't let me do it anymore. So anytime I get the microphone, you're it! All right? So no apologies here. Here we go. When Sid set off for school one day, a happy feeling came his way. It filled him up so much he found his paws just lifted off the ground. Without a how, without a why, Sid fell up towards the sky. Through swirling puffs of clouds he twirled above a tiny toy town world. In the land of sun and moon, like a doggy-shaped balloon. At school, Sid asked his best friend Ben, "Did you see me fly just then?" "Don't be daft," came Ben's reply. "You're a dog, and dogs don't fly." "But I did," said Sid. "I did." In the classroom, Sid said, "Hey, guess what? I flew to school today." His classmates giggled, yelped and yowled. "Dogs don't fly to school," they howled. "But I did," said Sid. "I did." Miss Mayer, the teacher, shook her head. "Now, Sid, you shouldn't lie," she said. "All dogs walk and jump and run, but dogs don't fly. It can't be done." "But I did," said Sid. Gus said, "Right, if you can fly, come outside, let's see you try." Sid's happiness had gone by then. He tried to get it back again. He thought about the clouds up high, and then he jumped towards the sky. "You see, you're just a dog," said Gus, "with paws for walking just like us. That will teach you not to lie, because now you know that dogs don't fly." Well, when Sid walked home from school that day, it seemed a long and lonely way. And once at home with Mum and Dad, deep inside, he still felt bad. He did the things he always did, but something wasn't right with Sid. His dad came out and asked, "What's up? You seem unhappy, little pup." Sid sat staring at the sky, and all he said was, "Dogs don't fly." Sid's dad slowly raised his head. "I know a secret, Sid," he said. "Can you keep it safe inside?" "What's the secret?" Sid replied. He turned around, and then he knew, and now you know the secret too. Sid's eyes were open wide. "I knew it! Dogs do fly," he cried. Sid's dad said, "Well, come fly then, Sid." And that's exactly what Sid did. So do dogs fly? Is it true? Well, some dogs don't, but some dogs do. You like that story? I love that story. So here's the question. What is the moral of the story? Someone's got a good moral for me, I'm sure. Wow, what an enlightened bunch of folk. Let me share with you. Actually, I read this to a graduation class at Avondale one year, and I said to them, I said, "What's the moral of the story?" And someone goes, "Doom!" They put their hand up, and I said, "Yes," and they said, "Teachers don't know what they're talking about." Yeah. That wasn't quite what I was hoping for. Someone else shoots their hands up, and I said, "Yes," and they said, "Your parents keep secrets from you." And I went, "No, that's not it either." Here is my moral to the story, and see if you agree. It says this. It says, how you feel affects whether you fly or whether you fall. I'll say it again. How you feel on the inside affects whether you fly or whether you fall. Do you agree with me? You know, I can tell you that pretty much every endeavour in life, and look, I've competed in athletic endeavours at a fairly high level, in business, in education, whatever it is, pretty much your level of performance is hugely dictated by how you feel emotionally. You know, what sort of state you are in. And it certainly applies to teaching. When you have a teacher who fronts up and it's like, and it's like, open your books, page 28, do the exercises here, questions 1 to 14, like this. You know, the learning educational outcomes that emerge from that are pretty poor, aren't they? As compared to, how was that video? I've never seen that video of that maths teacher that Peter showed last night. I'm thinking, I want to be in that dude's class. You know, you can see he is passionate. I can tell you the educational outcomes that he gets in his maths classes as compared to the open the page are just night and day, isn't it, really? How you feel, right? Your emotional state has a huge impact in education. I know that to be true, right? And so, here's the deal. How on earth can we prepare people, we can prepare teachers to be more effective in this space? We have a great interest in wellbeing at Avondale. In fact, so much so that we had to restructure our course in 2015, starting 2016 was last year. And so we looked at it and we said, hey, what is distinctive about Avondale? You know, why would people want to come to Avondale? Hey, look, we've got a fantastic stuff. Look, I said, I've been there 24 years. I love it. It's got a whole lot going for it. In a lot of ways, Avondale is one of the best kept secrets in Australia. But you know what? And I was sort of instrumental in giving this speech. One thing, right, that the Adventist church has that is its unique flavour is well-being. Right? And it's a shame. It grieves me the fact that we've turned that message. You know, I hate to say the phrase almost, the Adventist health message, because everyone just goes, ah. And we've done focus groups with kids and say, when we say Adventist health message, what do you think? And they go, don't. That's often the first thing. Don't, which is not a great way to start, you know, a positive message. Vegetarian, and that's about it, right? So it's not about that at all. This was actually this really incredibly unique spin on how to live well. That's essentially what it was about. And it was meant to be this distinctive flavour that we've had. And so we actually want to bring that to Avondale, and we want to bring it into our students, and we want to bring it into particularly our educators, soon to be, one day to be educators, so that they can be positive influences on their students as well. So as part now of the education program at Avondale in primary, secondary, early childhood, all students do a unit with myself and one of my colleagues, Jason Hinz, who many of you be familiar with, called Foundations of Wellbeing. So the first thing they do when they first arrive at Avondale is this unit, first semester, Foundations of Wellbeing. And it is fun. Like, we love it. In fact, I'll tell you a bit about it. We actually run in that unit. I'll tell you more about the content in just a moment. I'm going to share you some insights from it. But we actually have essentially taken the latest and greatest thinking from this, in this wellbeing space, from two areas where we draw off sort of basic neuroscience, very basic neuroscience, but we actually look at this new emerging field that's called lifestyle medicine, which I'm very much immersed in, and then this other world called positive psychology that you've heard about. And you know, there are just incredible learnings that are coming from these two places that we know people can use to help put them in a better state emotionally. And so we've pulled all this together, and they do this experience. Right? It's not just a learning thing, it's an experience called the Live More Project. We started it last year. We had about 70 in our class last year. We've just presented, we actually did a study on it to see if we were making a meaningful difference. And this paper's under review at the moment with the American Journal of Lifestyle Medicine. Check this out. This is our first year students when they come in. Look at this first thing. Looking at, over a course of 10 weeks, changes in mental health. 20% improvement in mental health in these students, right? As we're upskilling them so that they'll be able to pass this information on to their students. But we're setting them up to succeed in life. 20% improvement. Beamish, you spoke about effect sizes last night. Anyone remember what a good effect size was? If you get it above 0.5, look at this. 0.95 effect sizes. This is pretty powerful stuff. Also, when we look at depression, anxiety and stress, on average about 30% reductions in that within this cohort. And quality, overall life satisfaction, about 8% improvement. We're now running the exact same thing. We've got 140 in the group this year. Right? And this is exciting stuff. Right? This is really exciting stuff. What we've decided, you know, and we will know this, for most effective learning to take place, it's no good for you guys just to sit there and listen to me yabble on. Right? And so, in fact, even in today's workshops, and there'll be moments in even in this presentation, we're going to test some stuff and see. And so our students, the sort of the pedagogical framework that we're using to underpin this experience for the students is LETS. Right? And so I built the CHIP program around this same framework. But yes, they learn some stuff, learning's important, but then every week we give them challenges where they implement these things that they've learnt and try them out, test them and see if they work. They get to think and reflect. We know for effective education, reflection is such an important part. They think and see how they've gone, and then they get to share it as well. They discuss, they share it with people outside the class. And so we're really excited about it. So here, what I want to do this morning, and we don't have heaps of time, I wish we did, because there is so much I am fascinated by this stuff, and I hope you will be too. But there are so many really powerful learnings that are coming to the fore that are just practical, evidence-based strategies for what you can do on a daily basis to feel better. And that's what I want for you. That's what I want for people. To feel better, to live more. It's called the Live More Project. This is what I'm going to do in this session right now. I'm going to share with you 3 evidence-based strategies for increasing your emotional well-being that come from the discipline of lifestyle medicine. As I said, in this unit, in this thing called the Live More Project, we actually draw off lifestyle medicine and we draw off positive psychology. This morning, I'm going to talk about lifestyle medicine, 3 lessons from lifestyle medicine. In the workshops this afternoon, I'm going to draw off 3 lessons from positive psychology. Don't come to those sessions unless you like to be challenged. Right? So I'll say that as the outset. But let's have a look at this one, lifestyle medicine. Okay, here we go. I am going to teach you a little bit about your brain. So I mentioned that this is sort of underpinned by neuroscience. In a very basic way, this is what we teach our students about. There is a head, all right? And I hope you get, this sort of looks maybe not quite like your head, but you've got the same stuff going on inside. Up the top is this part of the brain that we know is the thinking part of your brain, and we call that the leader. And then down here, sort of dead smack in the centre of the brain, there's this other thing that has lots of different parts to it. There's the amygdala and the hippocampus and the cingulate gyrus and all this sort of stuff, but we keep it simple. It's called the limbic system. Raise your hand if you've heard about the limbic system before. Excellent. Because I'm an Aussie and we give nicknames to everything, all right? You know, I mean, Sydney Millennium Olympics, the mascots become Sid, Millie and Ollie. So instead of the limbic system, we just call it the limbo, all right? So raise your hands and do this. Wave to your limbo. You all have one of these, all right? So we're going to learn about your limbo. And essentially what we've discovered, and I could spend a lot of time talking about this, but I'm going to move quickly, is that this part of your brain is absolutely intriguing. neuroscientists have discovered that this is the part of your brain that is responsible for how you feel. Glad, mad, sad or bad, it's the part that's causing that. It is your emotional hub. What's intriguing is it actually has 3 other functions as well, and I don't have time to go into this, but I find this really stuff fascinating. It's your home of emotions. That's its main thing that it does. Its feelings are its main gig. It's also, though, in charge of memory formation. Well, that's a big part of learning, isn't it? This is why, I'll just make this really quick comment, this is why if you feel strongly about something, you'll remember it. If you don't feel strongly, you forget it. So that is why if sitting in a classroom where it's just emotional apathy, the learning outcomes are very poor. Whereas when people are engaged and are excited and are having fun, memory formation is a lot stronger. We know that motivation is part of this, the domain of this part of the brain as well. And this is why don't we do the things we know we should? Because we don't feel like it. Right? Feelings drive motivation because it's the one part of the brain that's responsible for it. And then the last thing, to cap it all off, this part of your brain is involved in many automatic bodily processes. This includes, we've now discovered, immune function. Right? So this is why how you feel affects how you heal. And there are amazing studies that have been done on this. There's studies done on dentists, dental students, I should say, who in just before exams, they give them a wound, this little blister to the top of the hard palate of their mouth, and then look to see, it's a fun study. Hey, like, pick me! I'd like to be a subject for that. They give this little wound up there, and then they watch to see how long it heals. This is just before exams. And then they wait a couple of months when they're in their summer vacation period, and they check to see, and then they do the same thing again, see how long it takes to heal. In the stress-free time, just before exams, the wounds take 40% longer to heal. Right, these studies have been replicated time and time again. I wish I had more time to tell you about this. It's just amazing. But what all this comes to is that this part of your brain, your limbo, is in charge of your emotions. It's your home of happy, if you let it be. It's also in charge of memory formation, motivation, your health, huge aspects of your health. The takeaway message is you want this part of your brain to be in the best possible state you can get it. And so essentially in this Live More project and this experience that we have for our teachers, we teach them strategies, evidence-based strategies for putting this part of your brain in a better place so that you can be more up and less down. Does that make sense? Would you like to learn some of those strategies? Okay, all right, well, let's do it then. You seem to be enthusiastic. Let's do it, why not? Here we go. All right, so lesson number 1. I've got 3 lessons for you. They've got catchy titles. We're going to say it together right now. Number 1 is bright. See, when I say, let's read it together, what that means is that we all open our mouths at the same time, okay? Here, let's try it again. So, bright, blue and green should often be seen. That right? Do you like that, Malcolm? I made that up myself, mate. You can see that, thank you. All right, what does that mean by that? Well, I'm going to share with you some really fascinating studies that are coming out. And I'm intrigued that both Dick mentioned it this morning, Peter mentioned it this morning. Every now and then Peter surprises me and comes out with something really intelligent. And so it was great. He reiterated on it last night. Here are the studies that are starting to come through. This one's an intriguing, which is sort of a bit of a seminal one. Come out of New Zealand, an ecological investigation investigating the association between access to urban green space and mental health. This is what they found. For every 1% increase in the amount of green space within a 3-kilometre radius of your house resulted in a 4% lower prevalence in anxiety and mood disorders. One takeaway message is that we know that green spaces, natural environments, are incredibly and profoundly beneficial for your emotional brain. We now know, and the tragedy of this is that we know that, and raise your hand if you've heard of nature deficit disorder. Right, so some of you have heard of this stuff. We now know that kids, by and large, particularly living in environments like this, are not interacting with natural environments as they should be. And it's to their detriment. These kids have learning difficulties, socialisation problems, more prone to ADHD. Right? So this whole idea of immersing in green spaces, natural environments, is profoundly important. I could talk a lot about that, but there's one element of it that I really want to focus in on. From a neuroscience point of view, we actually know that light, natural bright lights, as it comes into the eye, there's actually a cluster of sort of little nerves on the top of your optic nerve that sends messages directly to your limbo. And what we know is that this little cluster of nerves in the back of your eye are actually sensitive and constantly tuning in to how much light intensity there is outside. And if you wanted to sort of dumb it down and think about it in a simple way, it's pretty much this. When the light gets bright, your limbo, your emotional brain goes, I think it's morning time. I think it's morning time. And so, wake up, rise and shine. All right? So all of a sudden, when the light gets bright, your limbo gets the message that now is the time to come alive. We have, however, a major problem in the way that we do our life. For example, we sit indoors like this, day in, day out. Here's a really interesting study. This was just published, you can see, came out in JAMA, Journal of the American Medical Association Psychiatry, 2016. They now have discovered, and I actually would go as far as saying that exposure to bright, intense natural light is probably one of, or lack of exposure is one of the major factors driving our epidemic of depression in our society. Right? Now, I mentioned that 1 in 10 Australian adults are on antidepressants. In the US, it's 1 in 8. Right? That is doubled in the past decade. Right? So the trajectory is bad. Right? And now antidepressants are the most commonly used medications, more than statins for cholesterol, all the rest of it. Right? So this is a major issue. What are the factors that are contributing to that? It's multifactorial, but I can tell you what, I think this is one of the key players. You look at some of the evidence for this. They now know they're actually using bright light therapy as a treatment for depression. And in this study here, you can see published in JAMA, bright light therapy was more effective than relieving depression than antidepressants. All right, this is really powerful. Check this one out. We actually know how much your limbo wants. Right? So the science has come up with this. Your limbo seems to need to be emotionally well about 10,000 lux. Right? So lux is just a measure of light intensity. It needs about 10,000 lux for 30 minutes every day. And you think, what does that mean? Well, what I'll tell you is, see these lights right here? How many lux do you think they're putting out? What do you reckon the intensity of the light in this room is? Raise your hand if you would say 10,000. Good answer. 5,000. 2,000. 1,000. 500. Some are just going, I'm just not voting. Right? Okay, I can say it's probably in here, I'd say about 300 to 400. How long would you have to sit in here, right, to get the equivalent of 10,000 lux for 30 minutes? It's a lot of sitting. That's a lot of time. Average, like you think in an indoor environment, normally it's about sort of 400 to 500 lux that's being exposed. You go outside on a bright sunny day, how many lux do you think might be? Now, one thing I want to say here, right? Don't get me wrong. Do not stare at the sun, okay? So don't get me wrong. Like, I don't want anyone fronting up like, hey, you told me. Right? I didn't tell you that. What I'm saying is that it's just the light that you're immersed in, right? The light that's bouncing all around you at all times. Right? So don't stare at the sun, but on a bright, sunny day, when you're standing out and the sun's really beaming, how many lux do you think you might be exposed to? Raise your hand if you think it's more than 10,000. All hands go up, right? Let's just practice this. Hands up. Okay, now we go. Yes, you're correct. Well done, you. Very well. Hands up if you think it might be more than 20,000 on a bright, sunny day outside. Yeah, it is. What about 50,000? Maybe. Well, I can tell you, it's actually about 100,000 lux that you can be exposed to outside on a nice, bright day. In the shade on a nice, bright, sunny day, you can be still exposed to about 25,000 lux. Right? Because once again, it's not what you're staring at, it's the light that's all around you. On an overcast day outside, it's probably going to be a minimum of 2,000 lux on an overcast day. So get that. How many lux did I say in a typical inside environment? 300, 400, 500. So probably outside on an overcast day, there's going to be 4 to 5 times more light intensity out there. And often, there can be up to 10,000. So here's the deal. We are not getting enough lights because so many of us spend too much time inside. Here is a study. This came out, this is just published in Current Biology this year. I found this fascinating. This is conducted by researchers from the University of Colorado. And so they actually got people and they looked to see how much average light intensity they were exposed to over the course of their waking day. Right? So this is them going about their normal life. It averaged about 750 lux. Now remember, how many lux do you need to be psychologically well? 10,000 for 30 minutes, or the equivalent. Right? So it's pretty hard gig to get, when you're only getting, on average, exposed to sort of 750, because there would have been times when these people go outside and do stuff and then come back inside. These researchers took these group of people camping in winter. Right? So this is not summer camping, in winter. And this was the average intensity of light they were exposed to during their waking hours. This includes morning, going out to evening. 10,200 lux throughout the course of the day. You know what they discovered in these people? They did it for 1 week. They took these people just out for 1 week camping and actually found that over the course of the week, psychological well-being, they started to go to bed by the end of the week, they were going 2.5 hours earlier to sleep and yet still waking up at the same time. There's actually now very good evidence that 99% of the world population are exposed to night light pollution, right, which is artificial light. So, Thomas Edison, thanks for nothing, right? Yeah, you thought he was doing a good thing, and hey, yeah, he did, but it's wreaking havoc with our emotional brains, our limbic system. So, lesson number 1, I need to move quick, is this. Bright blue and green should often be seen. It's a pretty simple strategy, isn't it? What do I tell you? Get your kids outside. Get your teachers outside. Right? Go and play outside, like Mum used to tell us when we were little tackers. It's hugely important. So lesson number 1, let's say it once again together so you remember it. Bright blue and green should often be seen. Okay, here we go. Here's lesson number 2. Motion creates emotion. This is where I get excited, Gary. This is my little realm. He gave me the thumbs up. That's a good start. Okay, I want everyone to hold their hand out like this. Point your finger. Okay, now I need you to close your eyes. Why do people stare at me when I say close your eyes? Close your eyes, and now with your eyes closed, touch your nose. Okay, open your eyes. Raise your hand if you've got your finger on your nose right now. You did that successfully. What an incredibly kinesthetic bunch of people. How do you do that? How, when you've got your eyes closed, do you know where your nose is? So, actually, some guy said to me, I'm so used to shoving stuff here, I just aim a little higher. And maybe there is something to be said for that, but the real reason is that distributed throughout your body, you actually have, the estimates are between 6 and 10 million tiny little nerves. They're called proprioceptors. And these little proprioceptors, little nerves, go up to your brain to tell your brain where your body parts are in relation to each other. So when I close my eyes, I still know that my hand's out here, and I know my nose is right there, and so I can actually touch it. Well, guess what? On the way, 6 to 10 million nerve endings on the way to the emotional brain, to your leader to tell them where everything's sitting, they go directly through your emotional brain. This is why motion creates emotion. How you move changes how you feel. It's not rocket science, it's just the way that you are wired. So, when we sit like this for 8 hours, if you saw someone sitting like that, what would you assume about their emotional state? They are down. This is a depressive posture. And so, as you sit like that, you have 6 to 10 million little nerve endings going up to your emotional brain saying, I think you're down. I think you're feeling flat. I think you're feeling unexcited about life. And so your emotional brain creates that feeling. I actually believe one of the other big contributors to the epidemic of depression we got is people are not moving in proper ways. Once again, New Zealand, hey, you guys produced some innovative research. I don't have time to go into details with it. They actually did a study where they got people and they taped them up. Taped them up either into a slumped over posture while they did their work, or another one where they actually were this. You know when you go to the physio and they tape you in this and you think, oh, that feels odd, but it's actually the way you should be. So they did this. Within half an hour, people reporting changes in their mood scores. These guys, negative mood. These guys, well, yeah, I'm feeling pretty happy about life. Don't know why I feel odd sitting like this, but it's these proprioceptors feeding information back up to their brain saying, you're up now, you're up. This is why motion creates emotion. Here is the stats on this. This is, I think, a tragedy of modern living. Here are the average physical activity levels of people over the past 100 years. Look what's happened in the past sort of 20 to 30. Sedentary behaviour has just gone nuts. And so we now have a 60 to 70% reduction in movement. I don't want to even talk about exercise nowadays. I know that when I say the word exercise, that eyes just glaze over and people just go, I don't want to know about that. In fact, when I used to do community presentations and try and motivate people to be more active. And I just learned that I don't use the word exercise anymore because what are the two words that people associate with exercise, do you think? Pain, there's the number one. I've done this with hundreds of audiences, seriously. What do you think of when I say the word exercise? And they go, pain. All right? And I can tell you, in life, you know, we tend to move away from things that cause us pain and we move towards things that give us pleasure. Well, hey, if you associate that, so I don't talk about exercise, I just talk about moving. Just move. Be active. Because by doing that, these proprioceptors feed information up to your limbo, changes the way that you feel. And what we now know, this, by the way, this is like the average adult today walks a 60 to 70% reduction in physical activity levels is like walking 15 to 16 kilometres less every day. Right, so the average adult is walking 15 to 16 kilometres less every day than those living just a few generations ago. Here, though, is the interesting thing, and we've known this for some time. How long does it actually take before just moving makes you feel better? And the results are 10 minutes. In fact, the study only it did 10 minutes. Will it be 10 minutes? Will it be 20 minutes? Will it be 30 minutes? Yes, it was all of them. So it actually may even be less than that. And so, here's the point. You don't need to move very long before things start to change, before you start to feel different. Because just by moving in a dynamic way, these proprioceptors feed information up to your emotional brain and go, I think you're up and happening. You're happy. And starts to change the way that you feel. Raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about here. Just a short period of activity changes your emotional state. It does it for adults, it does it for kids. We need to move more. And so, let's do that. So here we go. I thought, no way could we be introduced to this better than through the mighty wiggles, folks. So, I need you just to move your chair. Stay seated, but you need room in front of you. And we're going to move along with the wiggles. And Daryl has a cash prize for the person who does it the best. Isn't that Daryl? Carol? Yeah. Hey, give yourself a round of applause. Dun, dun. Hey, I want to ask you a question. How do you feel right now compared to about 3 minutes ago? Outstanding. What's that? Outstanding, yes. Hey, look, that's to me, that is a really simple illustration. All we did right then, you moved your proprioceptors. It sent information up to your emotional brain, changes the way that you feel. It's as quick as that. The outcomes. So I'm moving away from the message of saying to people, you should exercise because it's good for your whatever heart. No, you know what? I want to talk about the fact that just move now, even in short little stints, because it will make your brain feel better. And who doesn't want to feel better? And in fact, it works for kids too. We actually know. Thanks for the baby shots too, Pete. Hey, what we actually find is that when people move like that, even in short stints, right? Remember, I actually said right at the start, your emotional brain is involved in motivation. By stimulating in a positive way, just by moving, for a few minutes changes your motivation level. That's very, very well documented. But not only does that, I wanted to introduce this, and I know I've got to finish up. I have to finish now, don't I? What time do I have to finish, Darryl? Half past. All right. I think I have to skip. You're going to miss out in the last lesson. But anyway. So this is a study we did at Avondale a little while back. We published it in Teach Journal. We actually got kids at the Avondale school, and we watched teachers to see how often they had to discipline kids. Right? Sometimes just, class, come on, class. And then sometimes it was particularly Johnny, watching you, Johnny. Yeah, I've got you sitting up the front. And so then we did it just on the standard day. Then we actually got them to do just short stints of physical activity, and then we watched them after that. These are the individual disciplinary corrections. Look at that, drop down. Here are the class disciplinary corrections. This is with no physical activity. This is after it. There is about a 50% reduction in the total amount of disciplinary corrections that the kids have to make. To me, that's pretty powerful, isn't it? When I want to be, as an educator, spending more of my time teaching and not disciplining, physical activity, right? So principals, I'm pleading with you here, and educational leaders, get your kids moving. Kids are too sedentary. The kids are designed to move, right? And there's nothing but good outcomes that come from doing that, right? So if you hear nothing else, I suppose, get kids moving. So what does all this mean? Well, motion creates what? Emotion. Motion creates emotion. Bright blue and green should often be seen. And motion creates emotion. Okay, I don't really have time for this, do I, Darryl? Yes. 5 minutes? Can I go the fast one? All right, here's the next one. Food feeds your mood. What I want to say, as I've introduced at the beginning, I'm not here to make anyone feel guilty about what they're eating and all the rest of it. Because like I say, I eat too much chocolate. I do it. And I'm not a food Nazi or all the rest of it. But there is amazing science coming through showing such a strong connection between food and mood. Right? And so in the pursuit of just you feeling better, and I want you to feel better and more alive, what can you eat to actually help you achieve that? The science is really intriguing. There is actually some really fascinating theories that are coming through in this space. I don't have the time to tell you at the moment, but let me just cut to the chase and say there is now a whole heap of evidence showing that psychological well-being is linked to the consumption of fruit and vegetables. All right, so I'm going to say what you shouldn't eat. I'll tell you what you should eat. You need to eat more plants, pretty much. That's the the takeaway message. Happiness and mental health. These are in huge studies. This was done in Britain, and there was, I think, over 120,000 people involved in this study. And what they actually find, if I can stay on the stage, is that happiness and mental health rise in an approximate dose-response way with the number of daily portions of fruit and veggies. This is what it looks like. These are the people that are consuming, this is their happiness levels, mental well-being levels. 1 to 2 serves, it's down here. You can see it actually plateaus off after about 8 or more serves. So 8 or more serves is the goal. And what's the intriguing thing? Well, this actually, this was published in 2013. This actually raised some questions. They said, is it that eating more plants makes people happier, or do just happier people tend to eat more plants? Right? Which is a good question. So, New Zealand researchers actually studied this. This is what they looked at. They actually looked at causation. So they got people, they monitored their plant consumption for several weeks, as well as their daily changes in mood, and they actually found that the results of lagged analysis showed that fruits and vegetables predicted improvements in positive effect or happiness the next day, not the other way around. This is intriguing. Why is it that the takeaway message is the amount of plants that you eat today will will be related to how happy you are tomorrow? There's other factors that come into play, obviously, but all else being equal, why is that the case? Well, if I had time, I would tell you about one of the most exciting and innovative areas of medical research, and that is the gut microbiome. And what we're discovering is that your gut bacteria is intimately linked to your emotional brain and other parts of your brain as well. In fact, your gut is now being referred to as your second brain. And what we now know is that your gut actually, the foods you eat, sends electrical and chemical signals up to your brain and changes the way that you feel. And what's intriguing, so there's one, I'll tell you why plants work so well. Peter, stand up for me for a moment. So, yeah, you know where this is going, man. All right, so here's the deal.
Why am I worried?
So we're going to be a gastrointestinal tract, all right?
Oh, good.
Now,
I'm the large intestine.
Right. Okay, so here we go. This is how it looks. So I'm actually going to start here. I'm going to show you how long the gastrointestinal... Walk with me, all right? I'm going to come back to this spot. So it's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 7. So you stand here. All right, so now that means if I go back to here, now I am the mouth. What? Stay there. Man, I've been hanging to do this in front. Thank you for giving me 5 more minutes. I'm wrapping it up. Hey, so here's the point though. What we now know is this. When you eat something like this, which are yum, hey, what happens is they come into your gastrointestinal tract and they're absorbed by about here. But you have, get this, most of your gut bacteria, this is what we discovered, this is the most incredible thing. Do you know that your gut bacteria, you have about 100 trillion of them in your gut? Do you know that you have about 10 trillion human cells in your body? So the lesson from that is you are 10 times more bacteria than you are human. It's great for your self-worth. It's great for your self-worth. But you know what? You need to keep those 100 trillion bacteria happy if you want your emotional brain to be happy. And guess what? When you eat these sorts of things, that's all you eat, and they get into your... Because most of that bacteria lives in your large intestine, right down the end there. So when you eat this stuff and it goes... Gonski, they're hungry. And like, you know what it's like to live in a home with hungry kids? You try living in a home with like 100 trillion of them. And they're like, we're hungry. Whereas this thing here, or foods like this, now you want to chew these because otherwise it makes Peter unhappy. but these things here, they go, and even though they do all their thing, they make the journey. They get all the way down to the end.
Have a look. I could pass that.
Oh man. I knew this was risky getting him up here. So here's the takeaway message, guys. Fibre. What we actually know is that foods, if they have high fibre content, then they make the journey. They get down, they feed that bacteria, it makes it happy, and it makes you happy. Low fibre doesn't get there. Where do you find fibre? You find it in whole plant foods. Right, so once again, I'm not telling you what not to eat, right, but what I'm telling you is eat 8 or more serves of the whole plant foods a day. The next day, because it takes that long to get down there, those guys get happy down there. So because, hey, some of your best friends are germs. That's what you've got to come to terms with. Right? Some of your best friends are germs. Make them happy. They make your emotional brain happy too. You can keep that, Peter. So I'm wrapping up. Hey, these are the stats. You hear about high protein. You see foods, protein enriched, high protein. Everyone goes, oh, that's great. Well, guess what? About 3% of our population don't get enough protein in their diet. 97% of the population don't get enough fibre in their diet. All right? Eat more fibre. Make fibre your friend. Your little friends down there will love you for it. And if you're going to eat, if you've got 100 trillion of these guys, don't give them the same type of fibre all the time. It's like, apple again. It's like your kids at home. What are we going to have for tea? With this. Oh, again. They like variety. Right, so mix it up, different types of fibre. And you've heard about the whole idea of eating a rainbow. And if you're going to have lots of fibre, drink plenty of water with it too. We know that's important. So, third lesson, let's say it together. Food feeds your mood. Here are lessons that we've learned. Number 1, bright blue and green should often be seen. Motion creates emotion, and food feeds your mood. That's just, I think, if people were to do these sorts of things more often, then not just some dogs would do, maybe more dogs would do. And I'd love to see that. Hey, I'd love for you guys to experience that. And more, even probably more important than that, as leaders and change agents, I would love for you guys to be communicating these messages and sharing it with your staff. What I'll tell you, before you, right, the Live More project, I'm super passionate about this. It is something, when we saw the success of it, we actually thought people, and this needs to get out there. Right, I've only shared with you a couple of the things that we include in it. There's a whole other discipline where we draw off positive psychology, which is really intriguing. As I said, I'll be doing that, looking at that stuff in the workshop this afternoon. But I will be challenging you there, so only come if you're prepared to get challenged. But we have come to a deal with the division, the South Pacific Division, and so the Live More project, we've actually developed into a package that can be rolled out en masse. And it's going to roll out throughout the entire South Pacific Division. It's going to be made available to all teachers and schools as of next year. So watch out for that. And what I will say, if you're really excited about this notion of emotional well-being and some of these strategies for helping to achieve it, and you want to join this, it's not just an education, it's an adventure. So an edge-adventure, we'll have an advanced screening of it in September of this year. And so it will roll out. If you're interested in being part of that, in the record, in the next couple of weeks, there will be some ads coming out saying, hey, if you would love to be part of this and part of the advanced screening, then there'll be a link for you to go on and sign up. So and it's free. The advanced screening will be free. I don't know what the division are doing after that, but yeah, so love you get involved in that. But look out for it. Guys, I'm super passionate about this. Look, I think that we have a really distinctive and unique message to share. And man, it's just so needed. It's so needed. And so, hey, thank you for listening. It's been lovely sharing with you.